Question for you. Are you an introvert? Do you feel your introversion is preventing you from achieving your goals, stepping forward, being seen, and actually leaning into whatever those things are in life that truly can make a difference and move you forward? Well, if that's you, I have an expert with me on that topic today, going to give you some great insight as to how to push past that and actually dominate the world. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me ask this question. Right? Obviously, we're talking about introversion, and that's our primary topic. We're going to get into several other things today. We're going to start there. Looking at from an introversion standpoint, you've actually written a book on the subject. What was your motivation behind that? What was the thing that basically you said, I need to share this. I need to learn some more about it for myself, but also create something that I can share with the world? What was driving that?
Right. So, yeah, the book, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination, how that came about was well, growing up introverted, shy, and socially awkward, I saw there were a lot of opportunities out there that I wasn't getting access to because I wasn't putting myself out there, so to speak. And
Mm,
so I was thinking, well, I would like some of these opportunities. I'd like to be able to, talk to girls. I'd like to be able to, you know, get get invited to events. I'd like to, have a larger friend circle and just opportunities get presented to people that are, visible and out there. So I, I at the time I looked at some other resources and nothing really seemed to apply to my personality type because they just say, well, just go do it, And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I was trying to think of, well, uh, what could I do that I actually would do? And superpower of introverts is observation. So I just go places and I'd watch what's working and what little steps can I take from people that I see are doing things that are working and actually apply to myself. So I was the guinea pig, started doing it, it started working, and then someone one day asked me, I got invited to Barcelona to speak about networking for introverts. I said, "Oh, okay." And I didn't know that there was anyone was interested in that, but I went and there was a lot of people. They were all out there taking notes, and I said, "Oh, people actually like this." And then someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Where can I get your book?" And I didn't have a book, so I wrote a book, and that's how that came about.
Awesome. So that's very interesting. So it was really more driven by demand from the outside world and what other people were seeing and experiencing. And you saw a void there that you could fill by actually taking the time to pull some of those things together.
Yes.
Uh, from your book, what are some of the key learnings or key factors? I know we're going to talk about some frameworks as we go through this episode. Is that really what is wrapped in? Is it starting to have these certain frameworks that you work from, or is there more to it than just that?
Well, it's pretty much I love systems, and so if I can build a system that I can operate from, that is very helpful. So that's what I did with this. And so I'd say the key thing is you got to show up. Show up. Nothing happens if you don't show up. So even if you don't talk to anybody, if you just go to an event and you're in the room, that's more important than knowing all the things to do and then not showing up. So that's where it all starts. And then we break it down into steps. I always talk about in the military, they show everyone how to make the bed. And whether you're a genius or the opposite of a genius, everybody knows how to make the bed because it's broken down into simple steps. And
Hmm.
so we do it the same way with social situations. We break it down so you can know exactly just take this one step and it'll get you there.
Got it. So showing up is step one of one. Sounds like what you're
Yes.
speaking of. From an introvert's chair, is that a difficult thing to do? Just show up? And what are some of the emotional things or fears that are behind that in your experience that we might need to face and push our way through?
Yes, it actually is difficult. Apparently, like you want to be at the thing, but then it's like, should I just cancel? Should I not go? What are they going to be judging me? I don't know what to do. I don't know anyone there, sort of thing. And also, if you're going alone, so I need a crutch. I need someone else to go with. So if you don't have those things, then it's absolutely a big deal for an introvert to go show up at the place. And then when you show up, you're wondering, oh no, everyone's gonna turn, they're gonna know each other, and I'm gonna be new, and they're gonna look at me, and everyone's gonna be wondering, why is he here? Why is she here? You know, and so yes, it is a big deal to show up. And then there was a second part of the question. Can you repeat what that was?
The follow on piece of that is, what are those fears rooted in, just based on your experience. I mean, obviously we have fear, and fear is such a, I won't say overused term, because fear is legitimate, and we're not saying you should not be afraid, but just figuring out and understanding what the fear is rooted in. Is it judgment, and being afraid of that? Is it feeling like you are going to feel less than, and really drilling down to the deeper parts of that?
Right. So I think there's some imposter syndrome in there, like, oh, they're all there and I'm not supposed to be there apparently, and they're gonna know that I'm not one of them, that sort of thing. And then there's a lot that I'd say we get from our parents. I see a lot of parents and children these days where the kids have it's the same thing that the parents. So like I know a woman who does it. She will not go to the grocery store. Because she'll say, so she does like the DoorDash, the delivery of
Mhm.
groceries, and she says, I might see somebody that I know. You know, I'm like, well, what? Why is that? Why is it bad to see someone you know? Because I'm not prepared to see anyone I know. And then so her kids, they're the same way. I'm like, because when I was a kid, all the kids were outside all the time. And her kids are inside all the time. And I say, there's kids out there. Why don't you go out? And they say, well, I don't know them. And I might see some other kid that I do know. I said, why? What? It doesn't make any sense to me. You would think you'd just go out there. And I said, oh, okay, I see, how they're watching their mom. She says this, and then they say, oh yeah, she's afraid of that for some reason. We should also be afraid of that because there's got to be a reason she's afraid of it, and it could have been the same thing from her mom. So it's just, there's no real point, but it's just coming on down the line. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a like a real anchored fear that, if you go to the grocery store and you see someone, unless you owe everyone money or something like that, then I can understand. You're like, I owe everyone money. If I see someone, they're going to ask for it. But just going out there, I
Totally
guess.
get it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, so it sounds like, if you reflect back to your middle school years, or some maybe your high school years, it's that, not part of the cool kids club kind of thing.
Yes.
Those are the cool kids. I'm not part of that group. I don't fit in with that group.
Right.
And I guess in some ways, that's, from an introversion standpoint, that's almost a mindset. The self talk, I guess you should say, that's kind of playing in those scenarios.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. It's a very fascinating thing. So obviously, you take that, and there's the yin and the yang of all things in the world. So you have your alpha type personalities, and these are the ones who are, want to be seen, and want to be heard, and for different reasons.
Yes.
And then obviously you have those of us who might be a little bit more introverted, a little bit more inward thinking type individuals, and wonder how we take that and, quote unquote, as your book says, dominate. So, what are some of the things you would like to share with the audience to help them start to say, "Hey, I am worthy. I do belong, and I have the capacity and the ability to dominate."
Right. Well, it's one of those things where you have to be open to, I would say, looking. Like, so instead of in your mind, like the imposter syndrome thing, in your mind thinking you have to show up and know everything, you'd be surprised how many people want to show you what they know. So if you show up and you ask questions, just like, for example, flying business class or first class on an airplane, uh, if you haven't done that before and you're like, oh, I have to go in, I have to act like I know exactly what's going on here, or else people are going to say, why are you here? Get out. Why is he here? That's not going to happen. But it's if you ask somebody, and this happened to me, I happened to have flown, not in a bragging way, but, business class several times. And somebody came on and they said, this is my first time, what do I do? I don't know. And then so I was like, okay, check this out. Okay, so this is this, and then they gave us these, and now we have this. We got these little socks, and so I got pleasure out of showing them all the little things. And this is the same with in my book. I talk about going to polo events, And I don't really know anything about polo, but I've gone to a bunch of polo events, and the first thing I do when I ask people if they want to go, they say, "Oh, I don't know." And I say, "Yeah, I don't know either." And I've been to like 50 polo events. I still don't know, but I ask people, and people go, "Oh, yeah, let me tell you." So this is what happens when they go over there, and then what's happening now. No one's really looking to. They're not scanning the crowd looking for someone that's like, "What are they doing here? They don't belong." And so if you show up and you ask questions, then someone is going to kind of take you under their wing and be like, "Ooh, this is my project. I'm going to show him or her what this is about." And then they are you've got yourself an ally. They're looking out for you because they're the one that kind of taught you, or they feel that they taught you, even if you already kind of knew what that was. So one of the big things you can do is don't go in trying to pretend like you know everything. Go in and say, "I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on." And somebody's going to jump at the opportunity to share all that they know.
100% agree with you. And it's interesting. From what we really gathered so far, there's two main steps. The first step is the biggest one, that's to show up, right?
Yes.
The second step is when you are there, to engage, to, as you said, ask questions, to be present, to be in the moment. And I would say showing up is, step one of one, and that's a challenge. However, that second step as an introvert is like, what, talk to people? Like, what do you mean talk to people, right?
Right.
Uh, However, the other piece of that too is and this is where I think we have maybe just a little bit of a disconnect in what's going on just in our own thought processes. Is it's a polo event or any kind of event where there's dozens and dozens of people around. I assure you, you're not the only introvert in the room,
Right.
right? So find your kindred spirits out there, and one way to go about doing that is, as you said, to engage and to ask the questions and to admit, "Hey, I don't know what I don't know,"
Yes.
and have others show you, and just start to share and talk about those different things. I think makes such a huge difference in self belief, that the trust in yourself, that you can engage and maintain those conversations and share knowledge, and just all of that starts to just naturally flow. And looking at it from an introvert's chair, that's where you start to lay the foundation to build on to the next step and on to the next step.
Yes.
And you mentioned putting a system together. Would that be kind of how you see the foundational pieces of your system? And then if so, where do you take it from there?
So yeah, those are the first thing is show up, and then yeah, break it down to steps. So for example, when you walk into the room, I would say, because you want to know your body language, so I have all these little steps. So like your body language I call like, so cape walk, so you walk like you're wearing a cape. So because if you're walking like you're wearing a cape, you're not going to be slouched over. You're going to walk with, so your cape is draping correctly. So when you enter the room, you walk as though you're wearing an imaginary cape. And in my workshops, I actually hand capes out to everybody, and we walk around the room so you can see the difference. And so then you'd walk in like that, and then I say you'll look for the food. There's either going to be like some crackers or cookies or something. The food, the drinks, go there, and then because you got to do something with your hands, right? Like, what do I do with my hands? So let's say you could have a pen in your hand and a notebook, or whatever material of the event, and then the other hand you can have like a saucer with 3 cookies on it. Eat one of the cookies, and then just have the other 2 there, just so you have something to do. And then the drinks. And if you're by the food, that's a good conversation starter. You can ask about the food. "Oh, hey, I didn't know that it's caviar here. Huh, interesting, fancy. Who knew?" Whatever. Or say it's raisin, oatmeal raisin. Does anyone really like those? Anything like that. Have you tried this? Have you seen? And then you'll observe your surroundings. You can talk about anything you see. So on somebody, you can say, "I like your eyeglass frames. I like," or "Have you been to the men's room? They have art there. They must really trust us. There's art on the walls. I don't see too many men's rooms with art on the walls. The temperature, it's really hot in here. Do they?" I saw a movie in the 80s where they turned up the temperature to try to get everyone to take their clothes off, and it didn't work. But is that what they're trying to do with us? Do they want us to take our clothes off in here? Is that why it's so hot? There's all kinds of things that you can do from there. And then if that step, if you go to the food and nobody is over there, it's not working, then you're going to scan the room for other people like you. So the introvert, shy, and socially awkward people are going to be on the edges somewhere, maybe looking at their phone, pretending like they're doing something, looking at what the Kardashians are doing or something. I don't know, and so you gotta you'll see them and go, oh, you'll recognize that's one of my people right there, and then you go and engage with them. I call it like rescuing them. I got to go rescue that person. And they're going to be happy that you came over because they're freaking out over there going, oh, I don't know what to do. So then you go over and you engage, and now you have something going on. So it's just little things like this. Also, another quick thing is if there's a bunch of tables and you get there, oh, I'd always also say get there a little early because if you get there late, then you're limited on where you can mingle and sit. But if you get there early, you can watch people come in and decide who you want to try to meet as they're coming in. And you already look like you know what's going on because you're already there. You don't have to walk in looking confused. And then if there's an empty table, I call it king of the table, or you could call it queen of the table, whatever. And so instead of sitting at I could go sit at someone else's table where they're starting to gather, or I say, okay, there's an empty table, more people are coming in. I'm going to sit by myself at this table, and then people will come and sit with me. And then, so there's all these little things like that these little steps that you can do that you actually can do. No matter how shy you are, you can sit alone at a table and then wait for people to sit with you. And you'd say, well, what if no one does? Somebody will, because that's just how it works. There's going to be, we would rather stand than sit with you at the table. I'm rambling now. I will yield.
No, no, this is great. And you touched on it about two or three things in that I want to come back to. The first one is, and a lot of people categorize it as small talk. And I don't want to get engaged in small talk. However, it is an important piece of the interaction. And I wouldn't categorize it as small talk, especially when you bring it from the standpoint of very interesting things, like you talked about art in the restroom, right?
Yes.
Because that's a very unique topic. It's not how's the weather,
Right.
right? Kind of questions, and really being observant to those types of things in the room that are unusual or different, and maybe even fit your interest. And you'll be surprised that someone else will go, I saw the art too, and one of the artists just had a showing at a gallery around the corner. You're like, wait, I've been to that gallery, and so you never know
Right.
how things are going to start to line up. You won't get there unless you just open that door and allow those things to kind of flow freely. The next thing you hit on, which I thought which is very fascinating, um, is when you're talking about wearing the cape is one piece, and how you show up with your body language, because body language, I think, is such a key component, and a lot of people are very unaware of their presence and their being from a body language standpoint, right?
Right.
And it's critical, like you said, you have that cape on it, so it's like my chest is up, my shoulders are back, and
Right.
it brings this whole different vibe. And I think it's very important to just be aware of body language. Uh, the last piece of just what we're sharing now, though, is it. My takeaway is the things you shared. The cape walk, the rescuing someone, the sitting at the table alone, the starting the conversations. Those are all things to help start to move you forward. But it's also like working a muscle. You have
Right.
to do it and do it and keep on doing it, so you become more and more comfortable in that space. Is what it sounds like to me. It's going to be the most important thing. Now, as you see someone who's starting to transition, I mean, and I guess this is the thing, and I'm sure you can relate to this. When we talk about introversion, it's not like something you're going to cure, right?
Right.
That's
Yes.
not what we're talking about.
Right.
And that's the other thing I love. Can you cure me of introversion? No, that's not
No.
how this works. Understanding that they're introverts, they're extroverts, they're omniverts, and many other things that are out there like that, and that's just typically how they are and what they gravitate to as behavior styles. The thing we're focused to here is, as an extrovert or an introvert, whichever side of the fence you fall on, how do you best position yourself for success, to communicate, to grow, and to make a difference? Uh, that said, one of the things you focused in on your book was talking about purpose, and that's what I want to get into next. Um, as a introvert, you start talking about purpose. A lot of the times because they do feel they're kind of stuck, is the word I'll use, or in some ways maybe paralyzed because of the introversion. They don't even start to go down that road of determining what a purpose is or setting a goal for the purpose and striving towards the purpose. What advice would you have to someone in that chair to help them start to move and to get unstuck when you talk about finding your purpose and really trying to build on that?
Yes, excellent question. Before I get into that, I'd like to share one more thing about the body language when you
Okay.
mentioned the body
Yeah,
language, if
absolutely.
that's okay. Just because I think that your listeners would get a lot of value out of this. And that is, someone came up to me once and they said, "How do I know that I look approachable and not like, a killer or something?" So I said, "Okay, yeah, good thinking." And so I was going to a Christmas party at the woman who I was dating at the time, at her company, and so I didn't know anyone. She knew everyone, and I knew that they were going to be checking out who she brought to this, the company holiday party. And so I said, "They're all going to be looking at me and judging." And so I need to, like, how do I know that I look cool and approachable? And so when I got there, I said, "Okay, let's see, what do I do?" So I I said, "Well, when I'm sitting, I can't, sit slouched." So so we had the cape for the cape walk, but now for sitting, I said, "Okay." And I developed it's called Duke Cookie Face is my what I call it. And so when I sit, I say, "Well, how would a Duke sit, right? An old English Duke." I said, "Well, they're not the king, so they don't have to worry about all the worries, but they're up there, so but they're not going to be slouching." So I said, "Okay, so and so I tell my students however you imagine that is. So a duke or a duchess, however they in your mind they would sit, that's how you sit. You sit like that. And then so that's going to have you in a nice, comfortable but correct sitting posture. And then for my face, since I have been accused of having like a resting bastard face in the past, where people actually ask, "Hey, do you have a problem with me?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Your face. It looks like you have." And I was like, What is my face doing?" So so I was thinking, okay, if my best friend invited me over to their house and when they opened the door to let me in, I got hit in the face with the smell of fresh baked cookies. Now, I'm not gonna grin giant like, I'm gonna just have a nice pleasant, ooh, I'm gonna be offered cookies soon. And so cookies are coming, and I like cookies. So I'd have kind of like a pleasant cookies are coming sort of face. And so I said, okay, so I'll sit like the Duke and I'll have the cookies are coming face. And so I did this at this Christmas party and I met some people. And then at the end, I asked her, what did all your coworkers and people at your company think of me? And she said, they thought that you were really cool and really receptive and all this. I was like, all right, yes. And then so I started teaching that to people. And this is something they can do right away. They can go out and do this today. The Duke or Duchess cookie face. And if they don't like cookies, substitute something else. And, uh, and you will see it makes a huge difference if you're waiting at a restaurant, if you've got food to go to take out and you're sitting there to pick it up. Do this, and people will actually engage with you because you have that glow about you. And I don't know about how telepathy works, but when I see someone and I lock eyes with them, I say in my mind, cookies are coming, you know. And so whatever they're getting, I don't know what they receive on their end, but they're getting some good energy. And so that is a good body language thing that they can use. Now I can go to the actual question you asked, unless you wanted to jump in with anything on that.
No, that's awesome. I mean, when you talk about body language and that in itself could be a whole podcast. In all honesty, there's
Yeah,
so much nuance to it, and again, what people think of body language a lot of the time is the physical positioning of body parts. But as you just said, it could be the expression on your face.
yes,
It's as simple as that, and then people are like, "You got a problem with me, or why are you
right,
looking like that?" And you're like,
yeah,
"No, and you don't realize this persona that you're putting forward and starting to make yourself aware and conscious of that it's a huge thing, as you said, especially if you have to start to get out, socialize, and walk in a room full of people. What aura do you want to bring into
right,
that space? And it's the walk, it's the look, it's all of those different things play into it.
yes,
So going back to the question, yeah,
purpose.
what are some of the things that we can start to do when we're ready to truly lean into finding our purpose and making that difference and having that impact in the world?
All right. So for purpose, and yeah, for me, and it's happened several times in my life where because I tied my purpose to my job, my career path. I was in the Air Force, and then I was in oil and gas, and then when I left both of those, I felt like I was just in free fall because I tied my identity and built my social, all this introvert social structure around that. And then when you leave that, it's gone. And so it's you have to try to start over. But what I found helps out a lot is, and I saw some video where somebody said, perhaps in another life I can do this, and I was like, well, that other life can start now. Yeah, right now. So I felt like I was given previous my previous life, and so this right now I can say I'm going to create this new life. And so I looked at it like a someone writing a play or writing a movie script or a show, and they have to develop a character. So I say, okay, well, if this isn't serving me, this whatever, if I don't know my purpose, I can acknowledge and release this version of me, and then we can create another version. And so I start off by doing an audit. Where am I right now? What are the, and so not like the IRS audits, which is negative. This is a positive audit, a self audit, and so you can see what you're working with, where you're at, and so then that way you know what needs to go, what can stay, and then you'll add in, like, if I could be like what I wanted to anything, like what characteristics would I like? What am I? Was I previously a morning person and now I'd like to be an evening person? What do I want my morning routine to look like? What do I want to eat? What kind of music do I want to listen to? And just because you've been doing it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. You can change that up. And so I do the audit. Oh, another piece here is remembering, because in a lot of this striving that we do in our lives, a lot of stuff falls to the wayside, and there's things that we used to be passionate about that we completely forgot about. And so I say revisit some of that stuff. Try to remember, what did I used to love to do as a kid? And maybe it's different now. So like I used to write poetry, and then after high school I stopped, and just because I just got too busy or too cool or whatever. And now, oh, wait, maybe there's something to that. Let me try to do it and see if it still has something, or if it's time to put that back away. Or I wanted to be a chef also when I was a kid, and now I revisited it, and I love cooking. But for a while, I was just like, well, I'm too busy to cook, and I just got sidetracked. But now I'm rediscovering that. So there's all these things that you can revisit from your past, and then also from this new you, we can plug in these new characteristics, and then when we dismiss the old you, and then to reinforce this new you, to for this passion, to find out what you're into. If none of those past things have really lit it, then we'll redevelop your identity, and then we'll send you out to reinforce it. So, for example, the defaults are, I tell people, even if you're super shy, socially awkward, or introverted, take a dance class, cooking class, and language class. The dance class forces you actually touch another person. You're like intimately touching them. So it forces you to do that. And even if you can't dance, it's a dance class. You don't have to be able to dance. I take dance classes all the time, and sometimes I never get any better, and it's okay because you're not supposed to be an expert. You meet those people. The cooking class, you can mess up some food together with somebody else while you're trying to create it. The language class, you butcher a language together with these new people, and you're introducing yourself as the new version of you. So you don't have to come in as the old version. So now all these people know you as this new you that you've put out, and so it reinforces that, and they will help. So this will also help you. You'll learn what their hobbies are, and that might spark something. You say, I never thought about that. Beekeeping, what's that about? Can I come out one day and check that out? And also, if there is something that you're into, and this goes back to like all the introversion networking, is let people know what your passions are. If you have the passion, if you have a hobby, let them know. Just say, I like kayaking, by the way. And they might not, but they might know somebody who does. And they say, oh, Bob over there likes that. Or, hey, let me introduce you. Next Saturday, come out with us to this thing. And there's other people that are into that. And then you'll meet those people. So it's just so yeah, that next step is just going to these, breaking in this new you in these social uh, environments, introducing yourself in this new way. You're going to meet these people and the people that they know based off of this new version of you, and you're going to hear their hobbies. They're going to hear about what you think that you're into, whether that is or not, and then it broadens your view and your options on finding something that you're passionate about and meeting new people as well. Now pause so you can jump in there. So
Oh no, it's all good. I want to go back to what you were saying at the very beginning of that, when you were saying in the Air Force, and that you had tied a lot of your just persona around your job, and it was kind of tied together. And obviously, when you stepped away from that, it was kind of looking around and going, "Wait, who am I? And what's going on in the world?" Because you felt kind of disconnected, a little bit lost, and a lot of that is driven from what I'm going to use the term of keeping yourself kind of in a safe zone, right? Because you tie it together and you say everybody knows me in this way, and
right.
they see me in this way. So as long as I can just keep showing up like this, then I'm going to be safe, right?
Yes.
And going to be comfortable. Uh, well, everything else you described beyond that, as far as discovering this new you and unleashing this person to the world, is all about being outside of that box.
Yes.
It's
Not
getting
safe and
in that
uncomfortable.
same uncomfortable, right? So I bring that up because I do want to lean into that a little bit. In your experience, what has been the importance of being uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, and I would say intentionally doing those kind of things?
Right. It is super important because nothing changes if you have those walls up and you just stay in the same thing all the time. So for you to learn anything, experience anything new, or become more and have more opportunities, you have to actually go out there and once again show up. And one of those things is that is just so funny is like that dance class. I am terrified of that. I'll admit it, terrified, but I do it because I just go, well, let's go do it. And because they're not going to allow you to just go in there and I'm just going to sit and watch. They're like, no, 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 come on out here and dance. And then, but when you do it, when you're done, you're like, okay, I didn't die. Is okay. Nobody was laughing at me or anything like that because everybody's in there struggling, and you might find somebody's worse than you, and you can judge them and be like, "Ooh, I'm better than that person." And so it just puts you in these scenarios where you, once again, this is I'm not showing up. Once you're there, once you're in the cooking class and you're making your souffle or whatever, you're there, you're in it, and so you just have to. And even if somebody say, well, what if I don't like who they partner me up with? Well, then you're getting valuable exercise in how to spend an hour with somebody that you don't really care for, but diplomatically try to make a souffle with them. So that's still a good exercise. And I don't know if it's souffle; it could be any. You could be making cinnamon rolls or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. And I'll give you an example, a great story. So my wife I'm not going to say world class. However, she used to compete in tango, Argentinian
Oh,
tango, which is a very precise, specialty type dance, right? And this
yes,
was before we met, when she used to compete at a very high level. And however, now she still has a circle of friends that are very into tango, and she said, "Oh, we gotta have so and so on Saturday. You should come." And as you said, deer in the headlights, like, wait,
yes.
what? Tango? What is that? First of all, and second of all, these guys are still competing and different things, so they're at this uber high level.
Right.
And you want me to come and hang out for 4 hours on Saturday and do that? Wait, and this was the kicker. This was they actually have a portable dance floor that they laid out
Oh,
in the
wow.
public park. So not only
Oh.
is it just those people, it's thousands of people just walking through the park or walking a dog, riding their bikes, going, "What are those people doing?"
Yes, that is a high stakes social moment there.
Yes.
Yes.
However, it turned out to be a fantastic day, and so just as an example of every now and then, it's like, yeah, well, let's do this, and,
Yes.
and the growth that happens. So now, if the question happens again, it's like, yeah, sure,
Yes.
because you're building that muscle.
It gets,
From
yes. Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, building the muscle, it gets easier each time. Every time you show up, you're like, okay, I've done this. And it's the same with, even when we talked about public speaking, it's the same with that, because that used to be terrifying to me. And then I just said, well, let me just keep doing it. And even if I'm scared, and then one day I was just like, yeah, I'll just get up on the stage, and it wasn't a big deal anymore because I had just put the reps in.
It's fascinating, and just how the mind works. And that's why I really wanted to dig into that. When we talk about getting out of our comfort zone, the growth happens there, not the other way around. If you're inside of that box, you're staying safe. If you want to remain comfortable, uh, you really just can't have that experience that is going to help you break through. And that's what you really need to focus to and understand, is that that's where the breakthroughs happen. Sorry, we'll get right back to the video in just a second. Just wanted to ask a quick question. What's stopping you from living, loving, and leading your best possible life? Do you feel disconnected, out of sync, unsure of really what it is you want to accomplish, what your true purpose is, and where you want to go with your future? Well, the ASCENT coaching program is here to help. Please click the link below. You can schedule a free, no obligation consultation where we'll simply get clear on the things you want to accomplish in life, maybe get a better understanding of why certain things haven't worked the way you feel that they should. And from there, we can move forward to help you become the best possible you can be. Let's get back to the video. Next thing I want to bring to the table, because we're obviously covering a lot of great things here, and obviously now we've moved on to getting out of the comfort zone. You're taking more action. You're being more engaged. You're starting to uh, get more clarity on who you are, what your interests are, where you see yourself moving forward in life. I want to move then to this piece of how you get to, as an introvert especially, wanted to do something like write a book, be a public speaker, those types of things, which are just like next level considering where you started. So for you and your journey, how was that transition for you? What were the things that you focused in on, A, but then also B, that really kept you motivated to say, yes, I can do this. Let me keep pushing.
Right. So the public speaking thing, I'll get to that first because that is, I think, easier to explain. So with that component, I noticed that it's almost like a shortcut or a hack, and everyone wants shortcuts, but it's not, I guess, maybe not the easiest shortcut. But I noticed if I went to an event and then it's just like a standard event and there's other speakers there, I'm not a speaker, I'm just there, then I'm going around and I'm doing all the steps that I told you before. I'm going in, cape walk, looking for the food, trying to spark up some conversation, compliment them, observe, and then and when I'm talking to people, I'm trying to, they're kind of sizing me up, I'm sizing them up, we're just kind of seeing where we're at. And that's fine, that's one way to go. But then I said, okay, at the events that I spoke at, if I was a speaker, as soon as I'd get off the stage, now everybody there saw me on the stage. They saw I'm a speaker. So now I don't have to do anything. I just go stand to the side. People come to me. And so they come to me and they introduce themselves and they're trying to qualify themselves to me, saying, hey, this is why we should know each other. And I just have to just sit there and go, okay. And so I said, wow, it's so much easier if I'm a speaker, then that's all. If I just do that part, then other people fill in the blanks for me. They come up. They know me already. I don't have to say I'm Nick Shelton. They come up, Nick, I saw you speak. So I said, okay, so the more I speak, the less I have to like go around and do all this other stuff in the audience. I just do the speaking, and then people come up and they talk. They network with me versus me networking with them. So that's what was the driving factor. And then also women. When I was single, I was like, hey, women like speakers. Like if you're the guy on the stage, they are a lot more friendly to you than if you're just some guy in the audience that it's like, hey, what's going on after this? Are you gonna get some appetizers? It's different. Now I'm in a healthy long-term relationship, so that's not the but still it's just nice to have that inside track. If you speak, people come to you versus you going to them. And then for the book, I after that person asked about, hey, where can I get your book? Then I was thinking, well, I wanted to write a book, and so it's like, well, what would that be like? So And I wrote it fairly quickly because I've been talking about it for a while, and so I knew what I wanted to say, and so I just made the outline, and then I said, okay, I'm distracted at the house, so I went and there was a hotel out by the airport that was maybe half an hour from my home, and I just got a room, and I said, I'm just gonna, my job in this hotel is just to write this book. I'm just going to be here. I'm not around any of my stuff, so I can't just get up and go do something. Can't mess with the dogs, or can't, just go look in the fridge or anything. So I just stayed in that hotel, and yeah, after about, I'd say it was maybe less than a week. Less than a week, I had the rough draft all written out, just because I can't leave until it's done. I'm just sitting in there. So that's how I streamline it for anybody who's thinking about writing a book. The My suggestion, maybe you can't take that kind of time off, but if you can, if you have vacation time or whatever, go lock yourself in a hotel room and with nothing else, and no internet, turn off the Wi-Fi and all that, and all just force yourself to do it if you need that kind of motivation, and I did. So that's how I got the book done. I just wanted to have it just so it would help more people get this message out, because speaking usually just it captures that audience that's there, and sometimes on podcasts like this it's a broader audience. With the book, it's out there where people can just stumble upon it, and if anyone needs that kind of help, they can say, oh yes, these are some steps. And it's, I'm not saying that everything in the book is something that everyone can use, but there's going to be something in there that someone says, "Ooh, okay, I can use this and this." And then if just other stuff doesn't apply to you, just discard that. But there's going to be something in there that even if you're not an introvert, you can still use.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So, last thing I want to get to, talking about introversion, is what if you aspire to be, or maybe even are currently in a leadership role? However, you have that introversion that's happening, and you're trying to adjust and figure out how to become a better leader or step up to just be a leader, period. What advice would you give someone who's in kind of in those shoes?
Well, from my research, I found most leaders seem to be introverts. There's a lot of introverted leaders, even though you would think that they aren't, but they are. But I noticed that one thing that has been very beneficial that I've seen, and I've also participated in myself when I've been in leadership roles, is to just show, like, I don't ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do. So I show them me doing it first. And then after that, then they might not see me do it anymore, but I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I expect from you. Now hang out and watch me do it. That's all you're doing today, is you're just going to watch me, and then I do the thing, and I don't really want to do it either, but I do it so they can see that I'm doing it, and then I turn it over to them and say, okay, now that's your thing. And so now it's a good thing, because when it happened to me that way, I said, oh wow, I have tremendous respect for this person, because that was the thing that I didn't want to do. They did it, and now there's no way for me to feel some kind of way about it, thinking, oh, well, they would never do this, because I just saw them do it. They did it before I did it. And so uh, it builds that, and you don't have to be a extrovert to be an example and just show somebody, but using yourself as the example and then having them follow along. So I would just say lead by lead by example, but show them the thing, anything that you're asking them to do, show them that you're willing to do it, and then it will make everything so much easier.
That's great advice. That's great advice. So leadership by example really does make a difference, and it also, like you said, as an introvert, if you are stepping out, again, you're stepping out of your own comfort zone, which helps you grow, and then shows true leadership and courage, and that obviously will trickle down into those who you might have a leadership role over. So it makes a big difference in the whole team. We've gotten to the part of the show where I like to call final thoughts. So, Nick, what I like to do is, what would be something that you would want our audience to take away as kind of a final thought? Uh, Whether it's a summary of everything that we talked about, or a specific story or a nuance you feel will really have an impact and make a difference as they go forward in their lives.
All right, final thoughts. So I'm going to say show up, got to show up. Then think about the body language stuff we talked about earlier, the cakewalk and the Duke cookie face or just cookie face. And then just those will get you off on the right track right there. And then for your purpose, if you're struggling to find purpose or you need to reinvent yourself, start off with an audit. And then from there, you know, recognize what you need to let go of, what you need to keep, move forward, add in the pieces that you would like to have, and then go out into some unfamiliar environments and try that out, try it on. And if you're in some kind of situation where you're feeling really stuck, call somebody. And I know, and just talk about it, because I know a lot of people feel, well, I don't want to bother them. But when I've had friends or somebody that I know that even wasn't necessarily a good friend, and they picked up the phone and called me, I felt honored that they chose me. They called me. They got stuck and they were in this hard space and they called me. So I put all my energy into making sure that we help them out. So if that's you and you say, yeah, this is all well and good, the introvert stuff or the purpose stuff, but I'm just trying, I got to make it through the day, call somebody. And then also you can do what I call a dignity scan, which is, what am I good at? And then, so write that down. What am I good at? List one thing. And then like, how do I know? List how you know. Like, does anybody care about me? Has anyone ever cared about me? There's got to be somebody. Write their name down. How do I know? Write that down. And then like a value that I have. What is that? Like a person that I cared about. How do I know that I care about them? Write it down. So a little dignity scan that also will help get you in the right mind frame to see what's what. That's kind of also part of it's like a deeper audit. But that'll be my final thought with that. Just call somebody if you're stuck. Call somebody. Show up. Body language, and you'll be good to go.
Awesome, man. Body language is a big one. Nick, thanks for that. So, share with our audience if they want to connect with you. How would they reach you? Where can they find your book, etc.?
Okay, the book is on Amazon, An Introvert's Guide to World Domination. And then my website is resettheman.com. And if you're a woman, you can also go there, but I needed a domain name, so resettheman.com. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. Nick Shelton is just me there smiling. I'm easy to find. So, yes, please reach out. I'd love to help you any way I can.
Nick, thank you for your time today. It's been amazing sharing this with you, and I'm sure we've laid out several golden nuggets. I think our audience will definitely benefit from. I appreciate the time, and we'll do another one of these in the future. So
Yes.
until then, as I always say to the audience, let's all take care and take care of each other. That's what's important. And
Yes.
we'll talk soon. So
Thank you
until
very
then,
much.
bye now.